devil was after my soul. Matter of fact, I know the devil was after my soul. This is how I know. When I was a kid, I used to talk to angels. Um, I used to talk to ghosts and stuff like that. I used to tell my family about it all the time. I knew things that happened to my mom before I was even born. I told my mom that I picked her from heaven. I picked the family that I ended up with. And, I never understood why I might have did that. But, now looking back, I've lived a tough life, a colorful life. I've done a lot of different things. And I've lived through a lot of pain, as a lot of us have. And God, I think I chose this path, and chose my family the way I did, so that I could help others later on in life. Because you can study, you can learn as much as you want, but there is nothing like hands-on experience. To be able to help somebody, you have to have that experience, and I've had it all, in all aspects of life, and that is important when it comes to situations like recovery and addiction and depression and mental health. That stuff gets serious, and to pull somebody out of the darkest of darks, you have to have been there yourself. And that's why I feel like I chose the path that I chose in life, and I've been through so much, because I wouldn't be able to help you guys had I not been through and lived through the things that I have. But I want to get back on to what I was discussing. So, I already had a spiritual presence and was able to feel things as a kid. I grew up, a lot of things happened in between, in and out of jail, a lot of struggles, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. I felt like God wasn't ever there. I used to pray hard, and everybody used to tell me, like, don't give up, you'll feel it, he'll come, and when you do, it's going to change your life. And I wanted that so bad, but it just would never happen. I got really bad on heroin, and my uncle died at the time. My brother lost use of his legs. So, I was already going on a downhill. When all that happened, my mom thought that talking to my brother on a video call at St. Agnes would stop my addiction. But all it did was fuel it. It hurt so bad seeing my brother like that all I wanted to do was just run downhill as fast as I could. My uncle dying, all that stuff, it was hard to deal with. And when my uncle died, I actually went to the scene, and I'm the one who seen the truck and, called the license plate out and found out it was him. And he's always been there for me. Like, he was a bad person when he drank, but he always had a good heart. And he was drinking and driving. He hit a telephone pole at 145 mile an hour, and it killed him. And that night, I can't explain it. I felt his pain. I felt where he was at. I visioned him being in this chair in a dark room, and like all his worst fears are just coming at him and antagonizing him and torturing him. And I felt it, and it was like the weirdest thing. I didn't know what I was going through. I was freaking out for 3 days. I couldn't get well. I felt sick. I just felt out of it. I don't know what he was trying to tell me or what I was going through, but it's unexplainable. And my best friend was there to experience all this with me, in the other parts of the story. But, during this time, I was dealing with so much pain, and I was just lost and confused. And I get online one day, and I start looking up stuff about the devil. As when things get dark, that's when the devil comes around. So, me thinking everything's a game, I was in my car one day, and I was like, Satan, I summoned you. I just wanted to see if it would work. And, immediately I felt creeped out, but I didn't really feel anything other than that. And then things started to happen. I started having dreams of demons in the form of my mom. They would say, look, your mom wants you. And I would turn and look, and it would be a demon smiling. And I would try to turn my head, and I couldn't turn my head away. And I would have these dreams every night, like repetitiously. Like I just would not stop. I would get sleep paralysis. I couldn't move. I'd be screaming. My arms wouldn't move. My legs wouldn't move. And so, after staying with my cousins and stuff for a little bit, I went back to my apartment by myself. I had been hooking up with the neighbors around there and stuff, and I met this girl, and she had a sister who was practicing black magic. I knew nothing about this. They left a mirror out at the dumpster, and I grabbed it. I didn't know it was theirs. It was like a nice mirror. It was new. I was like, it's a full body mirror. I'm gonna need that. So I grabbed it and I put it in my room. Well, when I was having these dreams with sleep paralysis, I would be stuck, and the only thing I could see was that mirror at the end of my hallway in my room, and I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. I couldn't move my legs, couldn't scream, but I felt a dark presence around me. I got so scared that I eventually put a sheet over the mirror and turned it towards the wall. I didn't want to mess with it no more than that. I didn't even want to take it back to the dumpster or nothing. I was honestly scared. But I was getting high every day, and I was in a coma basically all the time. Like, I would just shoot dope till I would pass out, wake up, shoot some more dope. I just wanted to be comatose. I didn't want to deal with no pain. I hate pain. I hate feeling pain. Now I embrace it because it helps me learn. It helps me grow. But at the time, I didn't understand that. So one day I'm on the floor, and these days went like this. I'd wake up, go get dope. It was carfentanil. It had tranquilizer in it and stuff. I would shoot it, pass right out, wake up like 5 hours later in weird position in my kitchen floor, body all cramped up. This particular day, I was passed out, forehead on the floor, crisscross applesauce. Like, I was gone. And a voice came to my ear, and it was loud and it was deep, and I felt a wave of something physical when that voice spoke in my ear, and it felt like it was this close to my ear, and it yelled in a deep gargling voice. I have no idea what it said, but it woke me up out of a straight nod, and I got up and ran down those steps and got out of that apartment as fast as I could. I was scared to death. So during all this, this stuff kept happening, and I kept seeing things, I kept feeling things, and then, after a while, I didn't even want to go back to my apartment. So I had my buddy come over there with me, and I was telling him about the mirror. Well, the next door neighbor was out. I go over there, I'm talking to her about it. Come to find out, I didn't know at the time that I took the mirror. It was their mirror. And her sister, like I said, practiced black magic, and she knows that because she found the books in her room. So I know that was probably linked to that mirror. Not only that, like I said, when you're down, that's when the dark things come out. And I was really down. I really didn't want to live. And I was talking to the devil. Like, that's how far I was, and didn't even realize it. He almost had my soul. And when I was out there in the streets, I was around some questionable people, and they were doing like pentagrams and putting candles and like getting down on their knees and doing weird stuff. I'm sure the person's watching this who did it, because they're clean now too, and they're kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing. But and he told me that they were after my soul, whether that's true or not. He said that these shadow people were after my soul, and they really wanted me. And it kind of freaked me out, because how do you even know anything about any of this that has to do with me and like being able to feel things and stuff like that? And then one night I was by myself in the alley shooting up, and I started just thinking about it really hard, like like the devil and just all that type of stuff, and I was freaking myself out, and it was getting dark. And this alley wasn't really an alley. It was just an area between two houses, and it just kind of went back and was like a dead end, and it come back out. So I would sit right there on the ledge and get high. Well, it started getting dark, and I heard banging in this house that nobody lived in. And then I heard the leaves start moving, and I got up and ran out of there. It was just happening all over the place. I know that the devil was trying to get my soul through my addiction. He wanted me to die, and he wanted my soul. So I fought, and I prayed, and I laid there many times after I wanted to die, and really believed I was dying, and sat there and had conversations with God, like, please, I'm sorry, I wish I never said that. I want to see my mom again, I want to see my brother again, I want to be able to see my son again. Like, I don't mean it. And I really thought that was going to be my last day. But I ended up getting clean in October 2023, and when I did, I was in the hospital. I was locked to the hospital bed, and I was up on a high floor, and I could still feel something around me. Like, even with the cops sitting in the room with me and stuff, I could still feel something, and it was like even stronger now that it knew I was getting clean. And I seen a glare in the window. I was laying in the bed facing forward. The window's on my right, the cops in the hallways on my left. I seen somebody walk past the window. I looked to my left, the cops sitting in the chair. There's nobody there. Um, I had to live in and out of hotels for a while until I really got back on my feet. And while I was in them hotels, I was having dreams that, like, I could see the demon just going around the bed, looking at me while I was sleeping. And it was a sleep paralysis again. I couldn't move. And I could just feel it. I knew something was after me. I somehow ended up at church one day, Lighthouse in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And something happened. He spoke to me. I felt this sense of peace just come over me, and I knew from there on everything was going to be okay. It moved me so much that I decided I wanted to get baptized, and not only baptized, I wanted to get baptized in front of everybody. And it wasn't that I wanted to. I really didn't want to, but God was trying to change that alone person, that person with low self-esteem. He wanted me to test myself, to show myself that I am worth something and I do deserve something. And that's what I did. I just felt like I was given the option to be baptized in front of my family or in front of everybody. And I chose to be baptized in front of everybody. But the pastor told me something. He was like, listen, when you get baptized, bad luck's going to start happening right beforehand, because the devil does not want that for you. And it didn't happen beforehand. It was a good day. My son was there, my 9-year-old, who I hadn't seen in a long time because of my addiction. That was the first time I seen him, and he was watching me get baptized. I was teaching him something good, something for him to look forward to, and to look up to. And immediately after I got baptized, bad luck. It was like immediate. I went out to my car. My key got stuck in the ignition, wouldn't even turn over. I had to get my friend to come drill my ignition out and beat a hammer in there. It took like 3 days. I finally got the car, going. I had to drive it with a screwdriver. And then, after that, we totaled the car, didn't have a car. And it was just one thing after another. My anger was out of control. I couldn't handle things anymore. And I pushed away from the church. And when I did, I never went back to getting high. But when I pushed away from the church, I was an angry person. I was mad all the time. And I just didn't use, So I took the drugs away, but it didn't, I was still tormented in my soul. So, just recently I got fired from my job. And when that happened, I decided I was going to finally sit down and focus on what was going to make me happy in life. Like, I deserve to find my passion. I've been lost my whole life, and this is it. I first just tried it to see how it was, and I started thinking one day, like, it was hard out there in them streets, them cold nights, getting robbed, getting jumped, everything, people out there are going through it right now. And I started thinking about helping them, and I went out and did it, and it just moved me. I know that this is my purpose, and now I know that, God and the devil was at a race for my soul. I had dreams resembling this. I had dreams of 2 tigers racing, and whichever one won was who was going to get my soul, which is weird. I don't expect you guys to understand that, but I could just feel the meaning behind these dreams metaphorically. I was fighting for my life every day. I was fighting for God to save it and for the devil not to take it. So I wanted to share that with you guys. It was a little hard for me to talk about that because, there's a lot of pain involved in that. But it made me a better person. I learned from it. And when all this started happening and I started helping people out again, I just started craving peace. I started losing like that lustful nature, and that had got me in trouble a lot in my life. Kind of just went away, and then I kind of felt this peace again, just that everything was going to be okay. And ever since, you know, I started going to my church, and now I'm involved. Now, you know, I get donations for you guys from the church, and you know, I do my part, and I'm a lot happier today. You know, I wake up every day, I give my time to God, because, you know, at the end of the day, everybody says, oh, I got this. I don't have time. I don't have time for God. When that day comes and it's your last day, you're going to wish you made that time. You guys have a good day. I hope that I helped somebody with this video. I hope you guys stay safe, and if you need anything, reach out. Please subscribe, like, and share so we can get this out there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for support.